Apple is getting attacked on integration. It's their highest differentiator. It should not be a dispute. Anyone with a actual accurate historical understanding of computing will understand how unique it is and that Apple won because of it fair and square. But it's all downstream from them being greedy from the App Store. My contention, my counterfactual is that if Apple was reasonable about the App Store, this case would not exist, even though this case is not really about the App Store.
Yeah, well, and we will see how it's resolved. There's one broad request for relief that I found interesting, just as they ask for injunctions on all of the behaviors that they cite as examples of Apple abusing its market power, and then they say enter any other preliminary or permanent relief necessary and appropriate to restore competitive conditions in the markets affected by Apple's unlawful conduct. So the conduct cited is very specific, but the remedies are broadly defined and fungible. So if the trial and evidence isn't favorable to Apple, it could expose them to a wide spectrum of possibilities. I have no idea how it's going to play out, but I thought it was clever as a specific complaint, intro and Microsoft history notwithstanding. But
I'm really worried. I'm genuinely worried. And this is why, again, like there's lots of other comments in here that I agree with, right? Apple using privacy as a shield, like the security thing, like a lot of this is overstated and stuff that I've written about and we've talked about in the past about what stuff is actually providing security, what stuff's actually providing privacy. Is it actually their rules of the App Store and specific things they allow and don't allow? No, it's actually more technical, like low level things in a lot of cases. Like there's we can all get into that. But the reason why I find this whole case upsetting is the reason people love Apple is they're the only company that seem to care about the normal consumer and what it's like to use computers, excuse me. They really do just work, and they really are something, again, not to be cliche, but these cliches exist for a reason, that you can tell your mom or your dad to go buy this device and they don't have to be technically savvy and it's going to work. And you can share your photos easily. You can do X, Y, Z. And they included that bit from, this is a classic case of antitrust being annoying. Like Tim Cook had that joke about just tell your mom to get an iPhone. Obviously a joke. Now suddenly he's going to be on the stand to defend it or whatever. But it's
fine.
It's also
I didn't have any problem with that from Tim Cook.
Yeah, and like this is why people love Apple. Like in the face of all their bad acting and money grubbing ways, that still preserves number one. And number two, that's why they won. That's why the iPod stuff is upsetting, because the iPod stuff is giving credit to government regulators when Apple actually not just built a better product, but built an integrated product, a product that you could manage your playlist and stuff on a device that was better suited for it, like your Mac, and it would just work on your iPod. You have this great experience. This is Apple's done, like, and it upsets me that this is an attack on integration. It's basically saying that this one company that actually seems to care about the end consumer and puts their interest first we're going to seek to prosecute them based on that. And again, I think this is downstream from Epic already lost the case. They don't want to lose. They're going to find these points. I just see no universe in which, if the DOJ wins on these counts, the world of computing or consumers are better off. And at the end of the day, I do blame Apple for that.
Better off with more interoperability?
What degree of interoperability do you want that's going to make you happy? Like, I think that take messaging is a great example. Like, it's hard to get people to use new messaging apps. I've done it because I wanted the better experience with my friends on Android in particular. That's how I got started with WhatsApp. Like, I'm a huge WhatsApp acolyte now. The reason why I got started on WhatsApp and worked at it because I had friends with Android, and it sucked. And WhatsApp is delivering a better experience than iMessage in my estimation. And now, by the way, it's easier and easier to convert new people because more and more people are on WhatsApp in my life, right? It's a classic network effect. Every single person I add is easier. Like, the system's working. I agree. Look, I like the Mac system, that anyone can install an app. By the way, people ask about how these regulations could be better, X, Y, Z. They should be way simpler. They should be much more cognizant and just admit to the trade-offs. Like if the DMA is like developers have to be able to sideload apps, like make it a one-line regulation, right? And say like we acknowledge like, and even a lot, I think it'd be like we acknowledge that there are security benefits here, and the operating system can warn about that XYZ, whatever. Again, which Android allows, and no one seems to care about. I will just note. But like there's
because people buy phones for blue bubbles. That's not why consumers make decisions.
There are more Androids sold in the world by iPhones by a lot. And it's like 50-50 in the US.
Yeah.
No, it's like 50-50. Okay. So, now I think there's a separate discussion, which I've noted before. One of the issues in tech generally is this duopoly structure, which seems to emerge in market after market. And as long as there's like a game optimal theory sort of thing, where as long as they mirror each other, then both can get the benefit of sort of, I think this is the case with the app stores for sure. Google's gotten worse. Google for a long time lets you have a page in your app that was a website, and you could do like Kindle purchases, and they took that away a couple years ago. And like, what's the competitive aspect there? Apple doesn't allow that either. Like, I think that, but like the answer here again is like, look, if you want certain things, if you want RCS, pass the law mandating RCS, right? If you want sideloading apps, pass the law mandating the sideloading of apps. To the risk we're running by taking and again, I repeat myself once again, the risk we make by trying to apply these laws that were meant for a different world, where you won not by making consumers happy, but by controlling distribution, is that you actually end up making the environment worse. And there's just, I in my personal opinion, an attack on Apple's integration has only one outcome, which is making not just Apple worse for everyone, but computing worse for everyone, because Apple's the only company that seems to care about it.
Okay, well, I will defer to you on that front, but we can maybe return to these waters later in the week. Who can say? But for now...
Well, we made it like halfway down the first page of our rundown, so...
Well, the one thing, the picture that you're painting of Apple, I just feel like not, and I you've been nuanced throughout the podcast, but the end there where Apple is just so pro-consumer, they're the one company that cares about consumer. They're also just the most rapacious, like corporate fiends that like exist anywhere. And when you look at their behavior, like they've earned this lawsuit, whether it's ATT, whether it's the App Store, whether it's the litigation that they get into with patent holders. Apple, as much as they want to paint themselves as being pro-consumer, Apple is about Apple first. And
for sure.
They will claim to be consumer first until the dying days, but Apple is going to serve themselves first. And I don't have any problem with them having to show up in court and produce evidence about the way they do business.
No, but
he's subject to scrutiny.
It's a great observation. And thank you for bringing up ATT, which I would like to say, to burnish my bona fides, I was basically the only person in tech saying Apple is acting super anti-competitively, and this is all BS. I welcome all the masses that seem to have joined me the last couple of years, which, by the way, a lot of those masses that have joined me are like App Store refugees who are mad about Apple's developer policies. Another example of that's the tip of the spear that makes people dislike Apple, and then they start opening their eyes and seeing all these other areas. I completely agree with everything you said. And this is, again, I just cannot reiterate how much this is on Apple and it's on Tim Cook. The fact of the matter is that the integration point has always been the most legally susceptible point for Apple. There is a bit which you kind of hinted at the beginning. Stuff that consumers like is kind of problematic from a anti-competitive aspect. This is the theoretical critique of antitrust, which is that it penalizes good business decisions, right? Like that's, you mentioned that at the very beginning. And again, this is exactly what I predicted. Because Apple was so myopic about things like ATT and things like the App Store, and they looked at it legally, said, we're safe here legally, we can do this. They didn't consider the fact that they had an exposed hide, which, by the way, is the single best part of the company. It's the best part. It's that they do deliver integrated experiences that in a way that their competitors just don't. But it's also the most legally sort of vulnerable. And this case is showing that. The DOJ, this is happening because of the App Store. It's happening because of ATT, but it's attacking the integration. And that's bad for Apple, and it's bad for consumers, and it may be good for the DOJ. We'll see what happens.
Yes.